if you truly practice like that level of gratitude or embracing the emotions of your future, you're literally, if you understand, you're changing your gene expression when you're doing it. You're strengthening your immune system when you do it. All of a sudden, you start to see all these fundamental benefits that are a side effect of your efforts. It's going to become something that you want to do all the time, something that you look forward to. And I think that that's why we're here. I think, and when you truly get to that point, like it's an unlearning. We're hypnotized. We're conditioned into believing we need a reason for gratitude or joy, and consumerism makes it really clear, right? Until I get that, I'm this. But what if you've been creating, and every time you have the thought of your future, you've done it so many times it makes you feel like you're connected to your future? Well, that's a conditioning as well. If you have the thought of your future and you feel the lack that it's not there, then you're back to the victim, right? But if you can have the thought, and the thought actually produces, just like fear, the thought of something terrible happening in your life creates the feeling of fear, the thought of something wonderful in your life creating the feeling of gratitude. Then when you think about your future, you begin to emotionally condition your body into that future. Now, here's the payoff. Thoughts are the electrical charge in the quantum field, and feelings are the magnetic charge in the quantum field. And how you think and how you feel broadcasts information and energy into the field. So
into the collective field.
Into the unified field. So the question is, what are you broadcasting every single day? So then, we know that once you begin to self-regulate and you begin to open your heart, just in that small exercise that we did, the act of creating that kind of coherence in your heart begins to produce a measurable magnetic field up to 3 meters wide. That heart is actually producing a resonance. That energy, that frequency carries information. And when your heart is open, this is our center of oneness. This is our center of wholeness. This is the union of polarity and duality. This is the connection of opposites. So when the heart starts to become activated and we start to feel whole, and it begins to put that energetic pattern into the field, that frequency can carry the thought of your health. It can carry the thought of your wealth. The frequency of suffering carries different thoughts. It can't carry the thought of health. 70% of the time, people live in survival, live in stress. And that invisible field of electromagnetism that's surrounding the body, that resource of energy, is going to be squandered into chemistry. And every time you react, the field around your body shrinks a little bit more, and you become more matter, less energy, more particle, less wave. And then the hormones of stress cause you to narrow your focus on the cause. So when you narrow your focus on the cause, you're focusing on the particle in quantum physics, matter, and your senses are so conditioned into focusing on matter that you're beginning to experience separation. So the more I live by the hormones of stress, the more I have separation. There's separation between me and you, and my senses are fooling me into it. But the unified field says there is no separation. So then, if you're addicted to those emotions and they're heightening your senses, that's what they do in survival, and you become a materialist, and your field around your body shrinking, then you're going to feel separate from the quantum field, and it's going to take a long time for you to create what you want, because you're separate from the field and you will be matter trying to change matter. So the moment you begin to activate this center, this is our connection. This is our first connection to the unified field. The moment energy moves into this center, and we've measured this, the field around the body expands, and once there's energy in the heart, guess where it goes? Straight up to the brain. The heart acts as an amplifier, and literally it begins to increase energy in the brain. So now, once that field begins to expand and you get beyond, you take all of your attention off your body, off the people in your life, the things you own, the place you need to be in time itself, and you become pure consciousness, and you take all of your attention out of this three-dimensional reality, out of the known, and you start putting your attention on that field. There is a technique that we teach to do that, and you begin to feel connected from that field. Now, the faster the frequency, the higher the emotion you feel, the shorter amount of time it's going to take for it to appear in your life, because the faster the frequency, the closer you're getting to oneness and wholeness. So then when you teach people how to get beyond all of the elements in this three-dimensional reality and begin to open their heart, Their heart, that frequency is their connection to the field. The moment they open their heart, they become more energy than matter, more wave than particle. And now that becomes the amplifier that begins to generate a whole new set of thoughts, a whole new consciousness. And that heart center then makes us want to serve, makes us want to take care of one another, to inform one another, to help one another, to give to one another, to heal one another. That's what creates unity. We know this to be the case. We've taken 1,000 people in a room. We've set 50 people in the front of the room wearing HRV monitors, heart rate monitors, and we've told the entire audience to move into heart coherence and brain coherence and have the intent for the greatest good for the people sitting in the front of the room. And in a matter of seconds, all their hearts go into coherence at the exact same time, in the exact same day, in the exact same meditation. They're being influenced by energy, and their autonomic nervous system is being entrained to a new frequency. So imagine then, you begin to change your energy, you begin to affect many people in your life. So there's 4 states of consciousness. There's wakefulness, there's sleep, there's dreaming, and then there's a transcendental moment. And when you've had enough of everything in this 3D world and nothing new is happening, you start wondering if there's something else. And so for me, you have a few mystical moments when you're a kid or in your early part of your life, and you start chasing that experience. And so for me, I wanted to understand if there was a bridge between that world where there are infinite number of dimensions and this 3-dimensional world that we live in. So my interest in explaining this mystical science of the pineal gland is really thinking of the pineal gland as the brain's radio receiver. And it can only be activated through a certain process. And we have the most beautiful brain scans to show that we're seeing a trend. That when a person begins to take their attention off of everything material, 3-dimensional reality, a narrow focus on matter, a divergent focus, and they begin to broaden their focus, they begin to open their focus, and create what's called a divergent focus. When they do that properly, the act of opening their awareness and putting their attention on nothing begins to suppress this thinking brain and slow brain waves down into alpha, but not just any kind of alpha, very organized, coherent alpha. And now we're seeing the beauty of when they really can just allow their body to rest and almost fall asleep and keep their mind awake. There's this door, there's this opening. And when they silence the activity in the neocortex, they get beyond their analytical mind, their thinking brain, that memory bank of the known self. And if you're in theta, there's very little brain activity there, so you're aware, you're kind of conscious in your subconscious mind. Now we start to see very profound patterns where theta levels, and even delta now, become the primary frequency in the brain. And not just a little theta, not just a lot of theta, like a lot of theta. And when you see that way outside of normal, we now know what's about to happen. We now know in the next instant there's going to be an arousal. And now the sympathetic nervous system switches on when you feel pain, when you feel fear, and when you feel anger or aggression. And it's mostly survival stuff. But when this latent system switches on, and the sympathetic nervous system switches on, the arousal that's created is energy moving from the body right up into the brain. And when that gate at the brainstem called the thalamic gate opens up, and that energy rushes all the way up into the pineal gland, the moment that happens, the brain goes into what's called gamma brainwave patterns. Now, the amount of gamma that we're measuring is not a lot, not a real lot, not a super amount of a lot.
It's like Hulk levels.
Like extraordinary amounts, like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of standard deviations outside of normal. Now, the amount of coherent gamma in the brain in that moment is a sign the person's having a very subjective experience that we're measuring objectively. They're having a full-on sensory experience without their senses. And whatever's going on between their ears, the vision that they're having, they're not visualizing. It's happening to them. In other words, if your senses were heightened by 25% right now, everything you were seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, feeling, if your senses were heightened, your awareness of everything around you would be heightened. And awareness is consciousness. You can't have consciousness without energy. So now, all of a sudden, the energy in the brain goes way up. And the person now is literally in a whole nother world. They're in another dimension. That's why the pineal gland is called the third eye, because it's a profound vision. Now, once the autonomic nervous system switches on and it goes into gamma brainwave patterns, that radio receiver has tiny little calcite crystals, stacked rhombohedrons that are on top of each other. And those crystals begin to shimmer. They begin to oscillate. And now the radio receiver is activated. And now all you got to do is keep this mechanism suppressed and tune into frequencies. And all those frequencies carry information. And when the brain latches on to a frequency, the pineal gland acts as a transducer. And a transducer is no different than a TV antenna that takes one form of energy, frequency, and turns it into, or transduces it into imagery. And the pineal gland begins to release upgraded versions of melatonin. And melatonin already causes us to dream, but now, you're going to really dream. It already causes us to relax, but now you're going to make a benzodiazepine. You are going to chill way out. You are no longer going to be in survival. The melatonin is already an antioxidant, but you're going to make two of the most powerful antioxidants known to man: anti-cancer, anti-aging, anti-heart disease, anti-stroke, anti-neurodegenerative, anti-inflammatory, antimicrobial. 2 molecules release the same chemical in the brain that hibernating animals produce. No sex drive, no appetite, no preoccupation with the outer environment. That means you move out of survival, the body goes into stasis. The body can dream for as long as you want. And now, all of a sudden, you start to release the same chemical found in electric eels. What is that? The nervous system is going to become electrically activated. The amplitudes of energy are going to go up in the brain. There's going to be a profound firing. And then you make that one amazing chemical called dimethyltryptamine. And that begins to switch on. And what happens is you no longer move through space to experience time. You move through times and you experience dimensions or spaces. And the biggest lie that we've ever been told is that we're linear beings living a linear life. We are dimensional beings living a dimensional life. And when the doors of dimension open to you and you get a glimpse of how big this really is, you are going to care less about politics. You're going to care less about who's famous and who isn't, because you're going to realize you're all of that and more. And all of a sudden now, we have people that have switched this system, this latent system on, and they have a greater understanding of who they really are. And it all of a sudden shows that there is no past life. They're all happening now. I don't know how else to say that. And when we activate this latent system, the information that's being translated into profound imagery, that experience, that rich experience enriches the brain. Now you're laying down circuits for something that has nothing to do with the material world, and that experience produces an emotion, but the emotion is not going to be guilt or shame or unworthiness or fear. The emotion is going to be ecstasy or bliss. And the stronger the emotion you feel, the more you're going to be paying attention to those pictures in your mind. And literally, you're going to begin to rewire your brain for the mystical. And when you open your eyes and you come back to your senses, you're going to see a broader spectrum of reality. You're going to begin to see what has always existed, but you didn't have the circuits in place to experience them, because we don't see things how they are. We see things how we are. So now the person all of a sudden opens their eyes and I've had this happen. You see colors and light like you've never seen before. You hear everything's melodious, everything's unified. It's the smell, the taste, the feeling of everything is just enhanced. And we're here in three-dimensional reality for that. I mean, we're here to really experience life fully. I mean, that's why I'm here. That I'm not going to be guilty. I'm not going to be sad. I mean, how many times have we done that? I mean, that mystical moment, when you have that experience and you begin to perceive in a whole different way, and you connect to that intelligence, you will see that energy, that intelligence in every human being, in everything around you, and you'll feel more connected and less separate. And I think that's why we're here.